Well, I finally decided to get rid of all those little COVID pounds that I've gained over the last 2 years. First week was quite successful. If you want to know more and see how much I actually lost, stay tuned for this video. So last week, when I noticed that I was heavier than ever, I decided to finally get back in shape and start walking like I did before the pandemic hit, and to restart my diet program. It's a program where you use a point system. I might mention the name of the system, which I guess everyone knows, but again, I don't want to make any advertisement for them. I'm not paid by them. The program usually works quite well for me, though I noticed back then when I did the first tries with it that after a few, like 15 or 20 kilograms, usually there's a period where it doesn't work that well, but we will see how that turns out this time, as I also try to combine it a little bit more with workout in form of having some strolls, hikes, walks, whatever you want to call it, and later on maybe some bike rides. Originally I wanted to do it just for myself, and I tried that like 3 or 4 times over the last 2 months, and I never really stuck with it. So I thought maybe I can motivate myself by just posting about it, which I did on Instagram, as I noticed that I used it like once in the last 2 years. I didn't actually plan to do a proper video for my YouTube channel, but I thought along the way, why not? I was inspired to do that by a friend of mine who was my best friend in elementary school for 6 years. And over social media we reconnected a little bit recently, and he also started his channel around the start of the pandemic, and his goal is to get ready for a marathon, and he is posting weekly videos to show how his progress is going on as a normal person, not a professional runner. So if you understand a little bit of German, check out his channel. It's called Schubert's Jan Non-Elite Running. So inspired by that, I thought maybe I can do the same, because Jan always says there that he gets motivated by the comments he receives, and also since he has committed to do a weekly video, he cannot slack off. So I hope by sharing my journey it makes it also easier for myself to stick with it. But let's get back to it then, right? Last Sunday I restarted my diet program and had like a very short walk, but not much to talk about. On Monday, I finally had my very first very long stroll in like 2 years, which was over an hour long, which seems not to be much, but if you have just sitting on your behind for the last 2 years, it actually is a lot. And this is where I first announced it to Instagram, but hear from me from back then. The last thing I posted like 2 years ago was me getting back on my bike. In the 2 years before the pandemic, I've lost 25 kilograms, which comes up to 55 pounds if you are not in the metric system. So those are all back, plus an excess 10 kilograms on top of that, which is another 22 pounds. So the pandemic had me gain roughly 77 pounds, which I really start to feel everywhere, you know? So my idea was to say, hey, let's get back into shape. I don't want to fat shame anyone. It's just like, I don't want to stay like this. I want to lose weight again. So I'm starting to watching my weight again, getting back on the bike as well, maybe quite literally. But today I started to do the first serious hike I did in over 2 years, because that's something I did before the pandemic, just to see the forest and see everything that's going on and just enjoy it, take it in, bath in the forest, enjoy the forest, whatever you want to call it. So that didn't happen anymore. And if I even got out during the last 2 years for half an hour a week, then it was already a win. I'm just feeling tired, weak, and just after like 1 hour of walking around, that actually helped. I actually feel a lot better now, you know? So just the psychological effect is not to be underestimated. By the way, I am here on my first hike right in front the planetarium in Berlin Steglitz. On my hike I also came across a squirrel, And if you look closely into the upper right corner, you can see that there are even two of them. So Tuesday was a very weird day. I also went out for a stroll, but I decided to went down a high street that I haven't walked for quite a while. That is the closest one we have, it's the Schlossstraße. And at the end of that stroll, my plan was to have a little fast food snack that is actually fitting quite well into my diet plan. But on the way there, I almost got into a brawl. So I was walking by someone who was obviously drunk and was very agitated and was directing his rage on someone who was panhandling in the streets. It all seems quite harmless because you see that all the time. People are shouting and there's nothing much behind it, but the moment I passed him, he was about to attack him. And in that split second where I thought what to do, this fight or flight reflex, an old lady was just stepping between the two guys, like in an instructional video, and saying, "Stop!" And the guy stopped in his tracks. And now I was there standing beside her, and another woman popped up right next to me and did the same. So we were standing there, all three of us, and the guy was still very agitated. But then a fourth person was joining us, a guy this time. I was happy to stand with them, but I have no idea how that split-second decision would have turned out if that woman hadn't turned up. I want to say, and I hope that I would have had the courage to stand there and stand up there as well, but I'm not 100% sure. But at least I know I have the capacity to stand up. One of the ladies, both of them well into their 60s, called the police, and the police then handled the rest and everything was fine. And when we were about to go our separate ways, the two women were telling me that they were very happy that I helped them. And I was saying, hey, no, you shouldn't be thanking me. It should be something that people should do anyway. And thinking back, 5 meters away was a bus stop, and there were standing 50 people and only one person came over. So I told both of them that I very, very much admire their courage and that they were great. So afterwards, I still went to get my little snack, a doner kebab, which is sliced meat with some vegetables in a piece of pita bread. And due to the time that I've lost there, which I think was well invested, I had to take the bus though to not extend my lunch break too much. Wednesday I plan to have a very nice walk in the park, but see for yourself. Out for a small hike again today, a little shorter than last time, especially now that it started raining. But I have my sister with me today.
Hi!
So at least it's not that boring as usual. 1 minute later and we already had to take out the umbrellas. But that's how it is. And for some reasons I think I really like to have that smell of rain in the air, it's refreshing.
Definitely. I like it too.
A few drops would have been fine, but what the hell was this? Thursday I used my lunch break not for a longer walk but for a shorter one and used it to do grocery shopping, where I bought a very big bunch of asparagus, white asparagus, something we really like here in Germany, and prepared that for a nice dinner and invited my sister over after work. So we had like a very, very big portion of asparagus. In my diet plan, actually, asparagus adds points to your score. So I could afford to have my nice pork chops to it with a nice portion of potatoes and sauce hollandaise. And hollandaise usually has a lot of points and a lot of calories, but there's one brand that has like 15 or 20% of the calories, and it's not tasting as great as real hollandaise. But once you get used to it, you really don't want to have that fatty stuff anymore, and you're happy with that, and it is really solid on calories. So out of that big portion of asparagus, potatoes and stuff, I almost came out with plus minus 0 points, which was crazy. It was a fine treat that my sister also very much enjoyed. So we both love our asparagus. On Friday, I also had the same meal actually, because I bought so much asparagus that I had enough for me for a second round. But also I was very lazy and didn't want to do much on that Friday. So I also just went out for a very small round of walking, but I think I did enough for the first week. Saturday was my actually really lazy day, so I just invited my sister over, we watched a movie, and I didn't even left my couch for that much of a day. So it was a relaxed Saturday. Next day, Sunday morning, was time to get on the scale, because Sunday is the day that I have my weighing. So I stepped on the scale, and to my surprise, I actually lost 2.6 kilograms over this whole week. So that was quite a successful start. Let's see how the next week turns out. So much for now. See you next time, and thanks for watching.